All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for that little bit of delay as we've been experiencing a few technical difficulties, and so, but I hope that we have them resolved and that we'll have a smooth webinar today. But I just wanted to say welcome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Today we're going to talk about teams and meeting them where they are and promoting their leadership. The webinar will focus on the wonderful efforts that are being made to engage Native youth in becoming part of the solution to ending violence in communities. And as we've done some research, we've noticed that there are promising practices that are taking place in the U.S. and Canada, which galvanize our Native youth to action in the hopes to create change to help end violence and restore safety to Native women, children, and communities. And so our hope is to highlight some of these programs and campaigns. I didn't get to introduce myself. My name is Rose Quilt. I'm a program specialist with NIWRC. And before I introduce our presenters, I would like to pass it over to Tang Team, our IT director, to explain briefly about the control panel. Tang?
Good afternoon, everybody, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar. For those of you who have not joined us in the past for one of our previous webinars, I want to highlight and bring your attention to the GoToWebinar control panel, which should be located to the right side of your screen there. Of particular attention are two sections. One that's entitled audio. So in the event you have audio issues during today's presentation, go ahead and open that up, and you can click on the telephone for a brief, maybe 2 to 3 seconds, and then switch back to mic and speakers. And what that will do is it will reconnect your session to possibly a better audio connection so that you can get a steady audio. The other section is the questions section. So at any time during our presentation today, feel free to type in your questions as we move along during the presentation, and then we can collect all of those and then answer them at the end during the Q&A session. Other than that, I hope you enjoy today's presentation.
Great, thanks, Tang. Next slide, please. So while we're going to the next slide, I just want to welcome our wonderful, amazing presenters. We have Brighton Kimball, who is a Youth Empowerment Coordinator at the Native American Youth and Family Center out of Portland. She is the coordinator of the S.T.E.P Respect program at NAYA, and she's been with the program for about 3 years. She received her bachelor's degree from UC Berkeley. And then with her, we have Jordan Coleman, who graduated from Arizona State University, and she studied international development, sustainability, along with global health. And now she's at the position as a AmeriCorps Vista at NAYA Family Center as a Teen Domestic Violence Prevention Analyst. And then finally, we have Krista Williams, who is the Advocacy and Outreach Coordinator for the Native Youth Sexual Health Network. She is of the Delaware Nation from the Moravian of the Times First Nation. And so I just want to welcome our wonderful presenters for being with us today. And so would like to pass this on over to to Brighton and Jordan. Brighton? And next slide, please.
Great, thank you so much. We are really just happy and thankful to be here, and to also just be here in communication with all of you that are listening and on this webinar with us. Jordan and I helped to coordinate the S.T.E.P to Respect program here at Native American Youth and Family Center. And today we're going to be talking about the work that we've been doing over the course of 3 years. The work that we do is from a government grant from Office of Violence Against Women we opened it up with the planning year where we actually first just started talking with the community members and trying to really understand what they wanted to know about healthy relationships. So we'll tell you a little bit more about what we learned from the students we work with and the community we work with.
So, S.T.E.P stands for Services, Training, Education, and Policies. So with these 4 things, we encompass curriculums and work within the community and really just advocate healthy relationships. So this month, as all of you guys may know, is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And what we try to get our staff here at NAYA to really understand is that it's a community effort. So any position that people hold here at NAYA, they're all considered mandatory reporters in case any student has ever experienced teen dating violence, and with Bright and Eyes support, they can speak to us about anything that they may encounter.
Definitely, and not only just is it a community effort here at NAYA, but really is a community effort across Indian country and the world, you know, to really protect our youth. We always talk to not just the high school youth that we work with, but from the little ones all the way up to our elders. We have different programs where we really try to involve everybody's voice, and it's really important that everybody understand what teen dating violence is, and also that everybody take like a stake in their role and their responsibility in protecting our youth. So Jordan and I today are going to be talking about the work that we've been doing over 3 years with our community at NAYA, because we're sort of passing it off to you all, and we're going to be talking a lot about the different aspects of our work, but we want everyone to know that you're welcome to contact us for any information that you would like to know a little bit more about, because we're going to be just going pretty quickly over a lot of different aspects of the program that we've been doing for 3 years. So as we go on, you're welcome to ask questions via the little chat box, and we will answer them at the end after Krista speaks, okay? So the NAYA community, we just want to give you an idea of where we are. We're located in Portland, Oregon, and we have one of the 9th largest American Indian and Alaskan Native urban populations in the country of the United States. NAYA is a community-based services organization. We offer a lot of wraparound services, which is really wonderful. We also have a high school here called the Early College Academy that Jordan and I primarily work with. But as I was saying, that because we do wraparound services, because there's Head Start kindergartners here, because there are elders who do Tai Chi every Wednesday morning, we really try to use our programming to get everybody's voice involved and create that intergenerational conversation. And that's something that we really see that works well, and we would help others you would use at their own schools or organizations. If you can really get everybody's voice involved and what they want to see. One thing that we say at NAYA a lot is that it's youth-centered, it's family-driven, and it's elder-guided, and we really try to use that as a program strategy. And as I said before, that it really works. And so at the end of the day, what NAYA really does, and of course what Such Respect also strives, is that we foster journeys here. A lot of youth will come to NAYA as babies, or even, you know, as babies in their mommy's tummies, you know, and sometimes we actually have a name where we call them NAYA babies. And they enter our programming, they come to after school, they come to cultural arts events every week, and they may even come to our high school and then continue on as adults. So really NAYA is about fostering journeys, and though we're talking about teen dating violence awareness, we're really talking about helping everybody on their journey, their path through life, and for the 7 generations. So the services that we offer let's see if they're going to show up here. Great. Is that we, though our grant is to reduce teen dating violence, stalking, sexual assaults, and witnessing domestic violence, we really try to talk about our services from a standpoint of healthy relationships. So we talk about health in terms of respect, good communication, trust, honesty, and equality. And we not only talk about relationships with romantic others, but we talk about relationships to land, relationships to food. We offer services like, we'll talk a little bit more later about how we have clubs where we actually include food, making food, learning about the environment, learning about how our own relationships with the land can affect our health and then also the health of others. And of course, healthy relationships is the goal. It's not the only kind of relationship out there. And we try to let others, people know. We talk about like restorative justice kind of style, that unhealthy relationships can happen, and that there are unhealthy qualities of relationships. And then sometimes we have abusive relationships, and we work at mostly a prevention model, so we try to stay at the healthy to unhealthy range, but we do provide services, or we provide outside services if our youth are involved in abusive relationships.
All right, so this is the Teen Dating Violence Power and Control Wheel, which is the core. Power and control is the core of every dating violence situation. So a partner who wants to have power over their partner, and these 4 abuses are usually physical, verbal, sexual, and digital, but also emotional. So in this generation, a lot of, yeah, okay, go ahead. In this generation, a lot of abuse happens online, via social media. And so that's where digital abuse comes in. Sexual abuse, of course, is unwanted body-to-body contact, verbal, emotional abuse. And what we try to get our students to understand is that when we talk about teen dating violence, it's not just rape, or it's not just, physical contact. It can be emotional. So we do provide warning signs, which we'll go into later on in the presentation, about what they should look into, or what they should spot before it gets any worse.
And this is great, and we not only go over the power and control wheel with parents, but we also go over it with staff, and because a lot of adults may not know this, and it's something that is really important if you're looking at creating a training, or even just creating a really quick handout for, I'm not sure if there are teachers that you're working with or law enforcement, but to really understand what teen dating violence can look like, and that teen dating violence is not different from what adults experience, other than the fact that teens may be living in a house of a guardian or parent. But other than that, teen dating violence can be just as harmful and also emotionally distracting for youth who are trying to get through school and trying to be successful and get through their own lives. And we also talk about the teen dating violence and control wheel with students along with adults.
Okay, so dating violence is a pattern of abusive behaviors used to exert power and control over a dating partner, which we just went over, and it usually involves a series of abusive behaviors over a course of time. It does not mean the first instance of abuse is not dating violence. So again, we just want to emphasize that the core of teen dating violence are issues of power and control, where partners just want to use their abusive powers to take over someone else's life. And for example, let's see. And then I had mentioned the warning signs. So these are a couple of popular ones. So relationships where teens check each other's cell phones and emails to see, to stalk, see what they're doing. If they experience extreme jealousy or insecurities, if they're possessive, if they're controlling, and you know, they only allow them to do certain things or wear certain things, have negative feedback or comments, false accusations. Yeah, so these are all examples of warning signs that we tell our youth to look out for, or to ask them, you know, if they're in relationships now, if they're enduring any of it.
Right, so part of Step to Respect is the education component. And Jordan and I have created a curriculum called Honor the Core, and it's a 4-day curriculum, and it consists of 4 50-minute lesson plans. And we've been working on it for a couple of years, so now it's something that is more fun and kids can really interact, or I should say our youth who are high school students and not kids any longer. They can really interact and really try to get to the understanding of where does violence come from. We talk about decolonizing or decolonization a lot, about how domestic violence is not something that is inherent in a lot of indigenous cultures. The kids that we serve, there are 60% of them self-identify as Native, but not all of them are, and a lot of them do identify, though, as coming from indigenous backgrounds. So we really try to talk about these indigenous backgrounds and what were these kind of non-violent systems that we once lived in, and how colonization has changed our outlook on the way that we view women, on the way that we view, we have expectations on the genders and sexuality and sexual orientation. And part of the Honor the Core curriculum is that we try to do it in a restorative justice style. So we're not always lecturing. Though in this picture we are at the front of the room, but usually we're actually in a circle with the students. There's no, head or tail, in the circle. Everybody's equal. Everybody can ask questions. So we've found that this style of restorative justice circle and building community is really, really important to talking about healthy relationships and allowing our students just to feel free and equal and peaceful, about discussing, their own lives. It could be their friends, it could be their romantic partners, they could be their relationships with their parents or their foster care guardians. So restorative justice is something that we really try to use in the classroom. Great. So the last part of the STEP, as we've been going through the, the S.T.E.P services, training, education, and now we're at P, which is policies. Policies we've been working on for the last 3 years with a community response team, which is a collaboration along with other key stakeholders at the school. So we've included parents, teachers, principals. We even used to pay a couple of students to help come up with the policies and really get the wording about how do these policies affect youth. And the reason that we spent so much time going over these policies, over maybe 2.5 years we spent just working on these policies, which, by the way, is available online at the NAYAPDX.org. Step to Respect webpage on NAYA. You can actually download these policies, and you can also contact us if you have any questions about these policies. What I was going to say is that the reason that we spent so much time going over these policies and trying to really get what parents think and what you think is so that these policies can really be translatable and can really truly show the voice of the youth of what their expectations are and what their hopes and how we can best protect them. Earlier I was talking about restorative justice, and the restorative justice is not always, you wouldn't use it in every single case. If you had a teen dating violence incident on your school campus or in your community organization, you could still use that restorative justice style of communicating with youth. So we always tell staff that through these policies always make sure that the youth is empowered and that they can easily understand the policies, that they can easily access the policies, and that parents and guardians can also access and understand the policies and what is necessary and what is expected of them.
So like mentioned earlier, we make sure that everyone at NAYA understands that they have a major responsibility in our youth's safety. So from the kitchen to development to facilities, all NAYA staff have a responsibility to provide a safe atmosphere for our youth. So in our policies, we really emphasize two major things, but disclosure is the first step in when a student discloses information to you about a situation they may have been when regarding teen dating. So the two things are respond and report. So when a student discloses to you, it's important to first breathe, which should be our next slide, and then to report the incident. Okay, so respond, breathe. Breathe is just a trauma-informed response that we use here at NAYA, and we've passed it out to all of our staff, our teachers, just so it can be just kind of a quick reminder of what to do in an instance where, you know, maybe the information that a student has told someone was I don't know, it kind of triggered them in some way, or it's like, okay, what do I do now, you know? So the first step is to believe the student, then to respect them in a sense where, okay, we're going to do something about it. Environmental safety is making sure that when this disclosure interaction is happening, that they're in a safe environment, that it's what's the word? Confidentiality is important, and that they know that their information is secure and that it won't get out to other students, things like that. Affirm that it will get done and it will get taken care of, and talk and help them through the process, and to also let them know that they can take legal action with whatever had happened, and to empower them as well.
So one thing I want to quickly say about this trauma-informed response is that students, like the number one thing when we talk with students, and not only do we talk with them like in focus groups, but we also talk with students in really like low-key settings, such as clubs where we may be making, you know, spaghetti, and we're talking about, hey, what do you want most from adults, right? So most students, most youth, I should say, within the country, I believe it's like 1 out of 4 youth would actually tell an adult something that's happening in their life about, you know, teen dating violence. So that means 3 out of 4 youth would just go to a friend or Google something, right? So it's really important for adults to remember that it's hard for the youth to come to you. It's really difficult, and youth really, really, really don't want to be judged. So that's why the first 2 are just so important, you know, just believe the youth initially, and then also respect them, and like just respect where they're at, and the very last one, empowering them, letting them lead the way, as Jordan was saying. And then Jordan's going to talk about the second step.
Yeah, the second step is to report. So to confidentially report the incident you witnessed or that was disclosed to you on the youth to the Youth Empowerment Coordinator, which is Brighton here at NAYA. Okay.
Yeah, so at your own organization, you may want to designate a person. If you're working at an organization or a school, you would want to designate a person that students can speak to, and possibly a person who's not always involved with the student's day-to-day life, somebody who's maybe a little bit outside just enough. So, you know, not a teacher, not someone that a student may have any issues with. But someone that it's almost like free space, the free zone, you know, where they can just like talk and discuss. Here at NAYA, we are all mandatory reporters, but it is really nice if you have someone who's not a mandatory reporter being able to talk with students. So students sometimes feel a little bit more open if they know that it won't be reported. So that's something that we've just found here.
And again, students have the right to file a grievance form and for us to provide accommodations for them. So this, again, is in our policies. Policies are meant to provide and protect our students for whatever they may need. So accommodating them is a major factor. So I'm sure you guys all know what accommodations are, but in this, for just a couple of examples, you know, if a student and their perpetrator are in the same class, then of course, if the student feels uncomfortable being in the same class as them, we can accommodate to rearrange their schedule so that they're not, you know, around that person, or you know, if they go on the same bus, to kind of organize that they go on separate bus routes. All that kind of stuff is what we would keep in mind as far as accommodating our students.
And another thing about accommodations, the NAYA Early College Academy, where we work, and also NAYA itself as an organization, we're somewhat small, and then not only are we physically have a small space, but also though we are the 9th largest, you know, of people who identify as Native within the country, the Native community tends to be small in itself also. So people's information goes out really quickly. People may understand that from, you know, different experiences. So it's really important that, you know, these accommodations really fit the students' needs, and we really try to offer accommodations and then also to listen to students what they need. A student may say, you know what, that's not going to work for me. You know, I don't want just a class schedule change. But our school is only like, you know, 90 students. And it's very small. So we are, you know, there may be accommodations where they may want to be escorted down the hall to the next class. They may want to take lunch in a different place than the cafeteria, since we don't have different lunch period times. So there's a lot of different ways that accommodations can work, and really accommodations have to fit your own space, and it has to fit your own organization, your own school, and what you offer, and also talking with youth about what accommodations they look forward to is something that can really enlighten the process of creating policies. So not only do we have a youth empowerment coordinator here at NAYA, which I would encourage to, you know, have a like title at other places. Doesn't have to be youth empowerment coordinator, but just someone that is a safe zone, as we were talking about. But we also have a Title IX coordinator here, and any school that receives federal money actually should have a Title IX coordinator. We found that when we were interviewing parents at the very beginning of this program 3 years ago, only 2 out of 20 parents surveyed knew what Title IX was or had heard of it. I think only 1 out of those 20 actually knew that their school had a Title IX coordinator. So that's one thing that if you are at a school, or if you are a parent, or you work with students at a school, definitely know who the Title IX coordinator is. The Title IX coordinator is the person who is usually like in an admin position. They're not exactly a safe zone for a student to talk to, but they are a person who can do investigations on any kind of cases that involve discrimination on the basis of sex, gender, and sexual orientation. And also if students were not happy with their accommodations, say that they, you know, we could not provide proper accommodations for them, they could go to a Title IX coordinator, and that Title IX coordinator could, you know, investigate what's going on with that and get, you know, the principal, the teachers into action so that the student can successfully complete their education at that school. Here it's Ashley Thurstrup, but it's great to know who your Title IX coordinator is and encourage that. The reason that we find it so important to talk about policies, you know, policies can be very overwhelming, and it can be a process. As we've stated, it took us about 2.5 years to create, but we really believe that in the end, we carry the weight for our students in that we took all this time to create policies, and we really encourage others to take the time to create policies so students such as Emma, who's seen here, who went to Columbia University, that students don't have to carry the weight of being sexually assaulted on their campus or by another student, and then be told by the student, by administrators that there's nothing that the school can do. So this young woman, she actually carried the mattress, that signified the mattress that she was raped on around campus until her perpetrator was either expelled or left the school, or until she graduated from Columbia. And we don't ever want our own students to feel like they have to carry an extra burden. It's already hard enough to experience any kind of teen dating violence, and we create policies so that that student can, as easily as possible, continue on with their education and with their lives and get the help and services that they need to be whole.
All right, so for our student clubs, this year we've actually started up a new club that's called Food for Freedom, but it encompasses everything from gardening, healthy eating, sustainability, and yeah, so in this club, numerous students have showed interest in learning how to cook new dishes, but then we also make connections on how our relationships can influence our weight, so relationship weight is something that we've talked about before. Frugal date ideas, things like that is where we try and connect the Step to Respect program into this club. Another club that we have is the Women's Youth Empowerment Group. So it's just a time where the ladies here at NAYA can get together and just have general conversation about just anything, pretty much, from sex to relationships to body image to social media, and it's just a great outlet for students to get together during their advisory period and throughout lunch to just really express themselves and kind of just get out of the kind of school mode for a second.
And the other thing about clubs is that, just a reminder, it's somewhat of a heavy statistic, but 1 out of 3 high school students have or will be involved in an abusive relationship that includes sexual, emotional, verbal, or physical abuse. So these clubs is really an outlet to, one, for students to learn about what healthy relationships are so that they can spread the word and be peer leaders. We don't always use that word because some students feel like, oh, I'm not a peer leader, like for whatever reason, they may not feel comfortable with that. But we really try to give them the tools so that if they had a friend or a family member going through a situation, they can be someone that's like, hey, I know about this resource. Or, you know what, I feel like the way that your girlfriend or your boyfriend or that dude or girl, whoever that is treating you, it's just not right. I'm just not getting a good feeling from it. And then, they can start just having a conversation with their friends from there. So the pictures that are shown here, this is our Step to Respect leaders group from last year. They actually created their own public service announcement about healthy breakups, and they wrote it, they directed it, they acted in it, they did an excellent job, and that's actually, you can also find that on our website at NAYA, the Step to Respect webpage.
All right, so we just wanted to state a couple of fun things that we do that's part of Step to Respect. Earlier this year in October, we had an art and poetry contest, and this is the 2nd annual one, but this year we used the NAYA Medicine Wheel as the template or the guide to kind of direct their theme on what they believe is what do they define as a healthy relationship. So on the left here is our winner, first prize winner. And yeah, so it's been very successful. We found that with our students, they're all very creative and they all like to express themselves in their own way. So this year we've kind of used our curriculum and events and things so that they're more interactive. Our curriculum is more interactive, where we have activities that lead to a restorative justice circle conversation. So just wanted to point out one of those.
And this is a great way to get everybody involved. You can start your own art and poetry contest. You could decide it at any age level of what you would like. For us, we just do it at our high school, but one day it may include the entire organization, and it may include from elementary to high school one day, or maybe even adults and elders one day. So it's a really great way to talk about healthy relationships, teach them about it as they're doing their art, and also is great to share with the whole community. So, the entire community came out to see the slam poetry and art exhibit and learn about the students and their perceptions on healthy relationships. It was really wonderful. One thing that we also do every year is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month events. We try to talk about V-Day. We do we have here's a photo booth of teachers and students coming together, which is great because it's something that we don't always see at our school personally. Of students and youth really having fun with their own teachers, as you can see here in the middle. And we try to just create these fun events because this is the best way to really reach the youth and get them engaged. Get them to, put together a photo booth, get them to put together an assembly and, put together a playlist of music that talks about healthy relationships that they create, So we really try to use anything that the youth wants to create. We just follow their lead, basically. So last year we had our first annual Healthy Breakup Summit, and this year we're going to be having our second one in April, and Jessica Danforth, who will be speaking next, was kind enough to be our keynote speaker last year. In this Healthy Breakup Summit, though it has a bit of an interesting connotation, and I think adults like it a lot, and then kids are like, oh, I'm not breaking up, so I don't, it's not really for me. But it also kind of it sticks in people's mind that the Healthy Breakup Summit, because the truth is everybody breaks up with somebody usually, right? And so this Healthy Breakup Summit this year is just going to be for high school students and for middle school youth. And we really try to make it student-led, so we try to have students be the leaders of the workshops. We try to have students be the entertainment for the day, and even have students, choose the food of what everyone's going to eat. And so this is something that we've been doing for about 2 years now. We hope to continue. And this is also something that we always are looking for, more ideas, more people to be involved in. So please reach out to us about the Healthy Breakup Summit. And that's going to come up in April 25th, 2015. And here's a slide actually from Native Youth Sexual Health Network. And I just really love this where it says, all nations agree, keep the circle free of violence. A lot of the work that we do here is really just, keeping our youth safe, keeping the generation safe, keeping our elders safe. We're really committed to that our work creates a safe space where people can express themselves and be who they are, who they truly, truly are, without fear of violence, without fear of, retribution. So the goal of our work that we do here at NAYA with Step to Respect, we hope that you're a part of that work, and that work is to create healthy relationships in our school, respect in our city, honor through our lands, and this is our prayer for the world. And those who have yet to come. So if you'd like to learn any more about S.T.E.P, please check out our website. Our contact information is on there. Like I was saying, that policies, even our survey results, you can find them all on there in PDFs. You can also reach out to us and ask us about that. We have a couple of different PowerPoints for policies, and another one for all the findings that we found and how to do a strength and needs assessment, which is the way that we started. We're really we're really here to just help others use this information to really create a good space for their youth wherever they are. If you want to keep up on what we're up to coming up, tomorrow we're going to be featured on Break the Cycles, Teen Dating Violence Month. And in April, as I stated earlier, we're going to have the second annual Healthy Breakup Summit. It's going to be at the Native American Student and Community Center at Portland State University. It's for middle school and high school youth. And we are still looking for young people to be a part of that and to help lead a workshop if you know any. And that's the end of our presentation, and we just thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for listening. And again, contact us if you have any questions, if you are trying to implement a program like S.T.E.P to Respect.
Great. Thank you so much, Brighton and Jordan. And for those, for the attendees, I think we're getting ready to shift to Krista and her slides. So I think Ting is working on that now. In the meantime, I just wanted to comment and say, you know, it's really important and really appreciate your comments about policy and how that really impacts the youth. I mean, policy impacts so many of our lives as we go into adulthood, but to introduce that at a young age is really, really important. So I just really wanted to say thank you for that and really focusing there on that issue. Okay, so it looks like we are ready to move on to Krista with the Native Youth Sexual Health Network. Krista?
Great. Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you so much, Brighton and Jordan, for blowing my mind as per usual and also sharing all of the amazing work that NAYA is doing. And it was really fantastic to be a part of the Healthy Breakup Summit last year. I actually think despite the name, it was really necessary to talk about breakups, because even if we're not talking about romantic relationship breakup, people have all sorts of kind of ending relationship moments in our lives. Maybe it's breaking up with Facebook for a week or whatever. So I feel like it's a really necessary part. And in all of our years doing this work, we hadn't seen like a breakup specific work before, and I think that was a really great gap that you identified and filled. So really, really grateful to NAYA for all of their leadership and hard work on this issue. I don't actually have screen control, so I'm just going to say next slide, if that's okay. So we can move to the next slide, and I'll just tell a little bit about who the Native Youth Sexual Health Network is and kind of what we're about. So we are a by and for Indigenous youth network. We organize throughout the U.S. and Canada on issues related to sexual and reproductive health, rights, and justice. And we use those words very specifically because we're talking about our bodies and the spaces that our bodies are in. So Native Youth Sexual Health Network is literally a network. I'm one of several organizers and coordinators. So just here kind of sharing our work and sharing a little bit about what we do. We have 3 national Indigenous youth councils that we operate in the US and Canada, as well as a number of youth leaders and organizers in different places and communities across that as well. So we're really, really lucky to have such dedicated people in our network, and we couldn't do all of this work without some of the really amazing community partners like the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center and like the folks on the call here today. I think I do have screen control now.
Is it not working?
Unfortunately, apologies to everybody on the call. I am trying to click play on the slideshow, and it is it's not playing.
No. Oh, maybe there's just a delay. I saw it do something.
Yeah, I can move the mouse, but I can't hit play.
Okay. Okay. Let me.
So I'm gonna keep talking about our work, and folks, this is all stuff that you can find on our website at nativeusexualhealth.com, at least for the first few slides until we get this working, which is great. Thank you. So we work on a number of different issues, and we say this a lot when working with Indigenous communities and being ourselves, is we actually don't have the luxury of being single issue. We have so much going on in our lives, and we have so much awesome knowledge and sexiness to share, but we've also got like a lot on our plates to deal with. And so in our work, we recognize that work has to be intersectional by nature. It has to work on multiple issues at the same time, and we have to recognize that all of those things are connected. So this is a small sampling of some of the key areas and themes that we work around and that we work on directly. Everything from culturally safe sex education to getting young people involved in media arts justice and human rights, to kind of your sexually transmitted infection and kind of healthcare stuff, and then also understanding the systems that are involved in young people's lives. So whether that's young people that are coming into contact with the justice system, the child welfare system, all these things, how the environment is connected to that, so how industry, whether we're urban, rural, or reservation, knowing that those things have an impact on our bodies, have an impact on our lives, and an impact on our relationships specifically. So, for example, if we know that a community is facing, extremely high rates of industry coming into their community, maybe there's mining, oil or gas happening, that has an effect on people's relationships, on people's social self-esteem, on lots of different things, and you'll see that play out amongst young people as well. So we'll go to the next slide. So that's just a bit about kind of if we seem all over the place or we seem like we can't pick just one issue, it's because we can't. So really what I wanted to impress on everybody here today was also the importance of working from a strength-based perspective. So Indigenous youth especially are often kind of number one in statistics when you don't want to be number one, and we have all these things about how much violence we experience or how much trauma our communities have gone through, and only focusing on that also kind of erases the fact that we're still here and the fact that we've survived, and the fact that we have amazing tools and strategies and skills related to not just surviving but thriving amongst our communities, and all of our different nations have really diverse and amazing ways of doing that. So we talk about moving from deficit models, so models that assume that our communities are in deficit, are in need of something that we are lacking, and look at, okay, yes, we're experiencing violence, or yes, we have a lot of issues going on in our communities, but we have a lot of ancestral knowledge and ancestral strength that got us to this point, that allowed us to survive. And that's kind of what that image is about as well. It's about building community, and that literally together we can be stronger. And I find this a lot, especially around kind of violence awareness activities or policies and programs, is that we often frame young people and Native people especially, and Native youth especially, as just at risk. Right? People say you're these at-risk Native youth, or young people have to check off the at-risk box on forms in order to get services. And unfortunately, this really erases the reality of that, yes, young people are at risk, but not all by themselves. Right? They don't put themselves at risk on purpose, or do something inherently to being Indigenous or being a young person that is risky. And that messaging is actually quite harmful. So what we're encouraging everyone here to do is really recognize that if we're going to talk about risk, let's actually name where that risk comes from. So if we're saying, well, those urban youth are at risk, they're so at risk, what are they at risk for? Are they at risk for isolation? Are they at risk for experiencing racism? Are they at risk for feeling disconnected from their community or their family? Let's actually name where that risk is coming from, because then we can actually do something about it. If you just isolate somebody and say you're at risk all by yourself, that doesn't actually help that person, and that doesn't offer any kind of support. But if we name that there are certain things that are making their lives less safe, then we can actually organize and do something around that. And what it also does is doesn't blame that person for experiencing violence. So if we say somebody's at risk for experiencing violence, and we don't say why or how, The risk there, see what I'm doing? The risk there is that that person will then internalize that idea of risk and assume that they are the problem, as opposed to maybe the systems or structures that are around them or the people that are around them, and wanting more support and wanting to build more structures around them that are supportive. So if I could see you all, I would say hands up if you can commit to naming the risk, and really do that, and do that in your work as much as possible. Next slide. So what does this actually mean in relationship to relationships? And it's a funny word that we use a lot in kind of language, and people assume, like, the first thing when you hear relationship, people automatically go to dating relationships, romantic relationships, that sort of thing. But there's lots of different kinds of relationships. You know, I have a relationship to everything, right? You have a relationship to people, you have a relationship to things, to places, and it's those relationships and connections that we really want to visibilize, so that we understand that being in relation and having relationships and multiple relationships is normal, and we learn a lot from that. And so really visibilizing the different types of relationships, so that it also gives people a reference point, right? So if somebody hasn't been in a romantic relationship before, or they've only been experiencing kind of unhealthy relationships, what are some other relationships in their lives that they can make as a reference point? You know, maybe it's a friend or a family member or their dog, or, you know, activities that they really enjoy that encourage a relationship to self, because that really is the one person that you're going to be stuck with, and that, you know, really try and visibilize it. Like, young people also need to have healthy relationships with themselves first, and that starts with us as adults also supporting them in their decisions, and supporting them to trust their gut and to really go, you know, understand what it is that they believe in. This could also expand, particularly for Indigenous youth and communities, the relationship to land and territory. And this is something that we don't often talk about in the context of kind of dating violence awareness months or violence prevention generally, but that it makes sense that there are issues with, you know, when our relationships to lands have been disrupted, it makes sense that other relationships were also disrupted, and it makes sense that that's something that's really difficult, especially for young people, to navigate. So we have an example of this in our Sexy Health Carnival, which I won't go into today, but is a really exciting initiative that we've been working on for a number of years now, to really bring kind of an active carnival fair style to some of this information, which can often be very taboo or very difficult for young people to talk about. So we have a board about relationships to land, and really highlighting the fact that we have a lot of ancestral knowledge of being in relation, and a lot of teachings about what that means and what that looks like. Next slide. So what does this actually mean? What does this actually look like for service providers and for people like yourselves, that can be, you know, that can be there for young people and can actually make a difference in kind of what types of relationships they're exposed to. So we had some questions, you know, about active listening, and I think some of the outlines that NAYA and the Step to Respect program have outlined are really, really awesome, and really important to remember that, you know, what are young people themselves that you're working with identifying as important to them, and listening to that and being okay to listen to that, even if it's not what you expected to hear, not what you wanted to hear. And also really visualizing and understanding, how do you see yourself participating and supporting the recommendations that young people are giving you from that strength-based. So how are you kind of a consensual ally with them? So actually asking for permission and consent from young people before acting on information that you have about their lives or what they've disclosed to you. I think especially in the case of mandatory reporting, it's often really great to have like mandatory reporters and non-reporters as well, who also know how to support, like peer supports, for example, which is kind of the area that we work in, so that people can do that immediate, I believe you, and I'm going to respect your decision about what you want to do about this, and taking leadership from that person directly about what they want to do or not do, right? And that may change, you know, from the immediate moment of disclosure to later on. And then also thinking about that generally in your organizing and your service provision is, how are you making services or programs that actively not just involve young people, but actively come from them. So really building on that youth leadership piece that we're going to kind of transition to now. So we wanted to share also more about what youth leadership looks like, what are some existing models that are really working, and again, I think the Step to Respect is a really great model that's working, and how can you implement that also in your community. So we'll go to the next slide, which is a lovely piece of artwork created by one of our youth leaders, Megan White, who unfortunately couldn't join us today, really talking about what it means for young women, self-identified young women and self-determined young women, to support each other, and how do we visualize that. And a lot of our work does focus on media arts justice and how are we creating art that supports self-identified Indigenous young women in supporting each other. So knowing that young people themselves are often, you know, emotionally and sometimes physically the first responders to when things like relationship violence happens. And so how can we build up those skills so that they can do that? So that's a really awesome visual image that she created of what that looks like. Next slide is our National Indigenous Young Women's Council. This is such a fierce and amazing group of Indigenous women. They have just been blazing a trail of what it means for young women to really take a stand and really you know, support each other in their communities. The little one that you see in the photos has actually been with us since before she was born. We're just so thankful for a lot of these folks. And one of the things in here that was really central to the National Indigenous Young Women's Council evolution and growth over the last few years is that they're self-governed, so there's no kind of program or state or larger person telling them what to do. Sometimes we'll get funding to support their work, but often not, and then we have to negotiate, you know, that they get to call the shots. And it also is not only inclusive of, but is also really centralizing the leadership of Two-Spirit, trans, and gender nonconforming folks and people and women, and making sure that that's something that is not just kind of an add-on, tack-on, like an acronym, but is actually working to actively provide leadership opportunities, doing community actions, mobilizing with their community, doing skills training, and building their capacity to respond to issues in their communities. So all of these folks work throughout North America in their communities directly with the support of the Native Youth Sexual Health Network, and with some really clear specific things, because we also know that this work can't always be centralized. It really needs to be localized into people's communities. And you can follow them on Facebook as well. So next slide. So this is specifically talking about colonial gender-based violence, and in the context of talking about relationship violence, and this is where our intersectional stuff comes in. We really can't talk about kind of what's going on interpersonally with young people without talking about the larger systems and structures historically and currently that play a really big role in young people's lives. So we mentioned, you know, involvement with the child welfare system, the justice system, the police, those sorts of things, especially, you know, actually not just especially, but anywhere, whether it's urban, reservation, or rural, you know, young people are going to have, especially Native youth, are going to have interactions with the police. They're going to have interactions with these systems, with state governments, social services, all these things. And so we want to make sure that we're also naming that for them, and letting them know that those are systems that are in place, and that sometimes are sources of great programming and services, and sometimes are sources of violence, and are sometimes both. So that's the reality. So what we're really naming here, specific to Indigenous youth, is state violence. So knowing that the state itself, often the violence that we're facing often stems from the law itself. So while there are current laws on the books that, you know, try and protect from discrimination, and Title IX is a great example, the law has also been a source of harm, particularly for Indigenous people. And so we also need to recognize that and be really careful about our participation. And I think particularly for young people that have had really negative interactions with service providers or foster care, for example, kind of knowing who's responsible for that violence can be really empowering. And I'm going to kind of infuse as we go, really talking about centralizing the lived experience of Two-Spirit and Indigenous LGBTQ acronym people in our communities, because that's a really large part of our work, and I think we really need to decolonize our understandings of gender, especially in the context of violence prevention, because as soon as somebody thinks that this information or this doesn't apply to them, or that it's acceptable to be treated a certain way, you know, we can really lose our grounds, lose our footing in talking about this and being taken seriously by young people. So really wanting to make sure that we walk our talk. Next slide. So because the National Indigenous Young Women's Council is self-governed, and they're very passionate about talking about self-governance when it comes to young women especially, they've been really kind of talking about, well, what is the relationship between self-governance in our communities and at an individual level, and also in responding to gender-based violence. So they put on also a really amazing webinar not that long ago in partnership with I Don't Know More, talking about self-governance for our bodies and communities and responding to colonial-based gender violence. So it's, you know, we kind of use some of these words, but knowing that it also applies to teen dating violence in building responses, and I think what Brighton was talking and Jordan were talking about in terms of self-determining, you know, what these responses look like in different environments is really important. So that's another resource if this kind of piques your interest or you want to know more, to please check out that webinar as well. And some other resources that we have as well. So the National Indigenous Young Women's Council started off as a leadership project back in 2011, and it was really about speaking our truths and building our strengths. And what can young women do in their communities to build that leadership and speak their truths. So on the right-hand side, on the next slide, we have a zine that was created about, we asked basically young women, this one was in Canada, we asked young women in Canada, what does leadership mean to you? And they responded with art and poems and stories, and I think it's another really great example of how art can be a really great tool for organizing around this, because our people are very good at it, something that people can excel at. So that was a really powerful resource that we still use, and that leadership doesn't come in the same forms, right? So leadership often looks like somebody standing in front of a room, often a man, you know, kind of talking at people, and I think they really redefined what leadership can look like, and what it means to have leadership in a family context and a community context. And then on the left, we had our Community Leadership in Action, our Community Action Guide. So this is what the Council has been working on the past few years, is developing resources and tools so that young women can lead community actions in their own communities. So this report is chock full of examples of community actions, and then basic tips and how-tos on what does it mean to organize a tobacco planting workshop. What does it mean to get together and have a group to talk about cyberbullying and cyber violence? What does it mean to get together with your peers and try and share information? How do you do that? What does that look like? And what could that look like in your community? So we're all about kind of really inspiring people to think about how to adapt and form things specific to their circumstances. So another resource that we have, and then I know we wanted to have some time for questions, that I really wanted to point out specifically to Title IX, is really looking at the ways in which the school to prison pipeline operates in our communities. So people may have heard of this before, so knowing that our environments in our schools, except for NAYA, obviously, because they're amazing, it can mimic some of the ways that power and control are exerted over Indigenous youth systemically. So that's talking about the high rates of incarceration and criminalization in our communities, and that starts very early. If we are in kind of mixed environments, you know that Native youth, you know, get punished more easily for kind of similar issues, kind of get profiled as being more violent or being more threatening and that sort of thing. And so really examining, you know, what does that look like in a school environment? What does that look like in a community environment? And how do we organize around that? And so one of the things that we played with and that we want to talk about was this idea of push and pull factors, this idea that young people are often pushed out of systems meant to support them because of things like, for example, like gender assignment. So having to choose between male and female, and for folks that don't want to choose or can't choose or are still in the midst of choosing, that can be a really huge barrier to accessing services. That can be a really huge barrier to just being in community. And knowing that that's a legacy, right? So that male-female gender binary was a legacy of boarding schools. That was the first time, you know, that our people had to walk through doors that said boy or girl. And so how are we resisting those binaries? How are we understanding our own bodies and our own identities on our own terms and reclaiming some of that knowledge? This is a slide specifically around structural violence workshops that we've had and talking about policing. We're also a member of the Get Your Rights Network, which is a national LGBT youth organization and youth network around knowing your rights when you have interactions with the police, and knowing that that applies to our bodies. And so we've got some examples of, for example, different gender pronouns that are used in our languages, or different words for two-spirit people that we have in our languages, so that people know that there are more options, so that people know that they have a right to their own body and their own identity. That's actually a birthright to culture, and that, you know, that's something that we can talk with them about. So we're going to go to the next slide. And so that was the policing example. And knowing that policing is a larger structure than the police, because sometimes, you know, sometimes individual cops are great, sometimes they're part of our community, but knowing it's about a larger structure of control. And we'll go to the next slide. So another example of the school to prison pipeline memes that we created that are on our website, just to kind of spark some discussion and talk about what resistance means and what resistance looks like in our communities, and how do we do that in the classroom. And that starts with youth leadership. All right, and we'll go to the next slide. So we've been working a lot, as I mentioned, on the resurgence of Two-Spirit youth and Indigenous LGBT youth, knowing that that's also, you know, something that in and of itself experiences some colonization. We know that the LGBT acronym is not all there is to it when it comes to all of the fabulous, you know, Indigenous nation-specific identities around gender and sexuality, and that we're still in the midst of reclaiming and understanding that knowledge. So I wanted to finish off with a little bit of an interactive, or maybe it's a reflection question for folks on the call, to think about why are our communities or our nation more than just a rainbow, right? More than just an acronym, more than just kind of a pan queer understanding of gender, or even a pan Indigenous approach. We can't have one size fits all solutions. We have to have solutions that are catered specifically to our communities, and that we're more than kind of these boxes and labels that, you know, that try and constrain or try and confine us. So I want to leave that with everybody to think about and reflect on, and as a question for yourselves too, because I think we often think that, you know, oh, I'm not Two-Spirit, so I don't have to think about that stuff. But it's something it's a community responsibility to think about, and that's what we're talking about today, that this is actually all of our responsibility to work on, not just, even though it says teen dating violence, you're not a teen, it doesn't apply to you. That's not true. Young people learn from what they see around them, and so if they see around them healthy relationships, then that's something they'll want to, and if they're seeing something else, then we see that in our communities, that reflection. So I want to leave time for questions. I know we're running a little bit off schedule, so we'll go to the last and final slide, which is just our contact information. So we're all over the social media. I don't know why my email came up really small, but that's okay. NAYWSexualhealth.com, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that good stuff if you want to see more examples of our work or get in touch. So Anishik, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Krista. Oh, I just want to thank you both for, just being amazing coordination, collaboration, everything that you're doing within the communities and with our youth. And also to encourage our attendees, if you have any questions, I'm sorry, is there an echo? I hear an echo, but I hope it's not a major issue for everybody, but I would encourage everybody on the webinar, if you have questions, to please feel free to type them in. I know we do have one question from Carla, and she would like to be able to receive a copy of the PowerPoint. So I guess it's a question to Brighton and Krista, if they can get copies. Hello?
This is Krista speaking. Sorry, I was just on mute. For our slides specifically, I mean, everything that's up there is. Oh, there is a really bad echo. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'll mute myself.
I think it's okay. I think it's okay now. Yeah, if you mute your mic, maybe. For everything that we share today, it's all on our website. It's all on Facebook, and in much better formats. We just kind of pulled all of the pictures and everything from there to show you, but it's all much better laid out and accessible with more information about what exactly it is that you're seeing on our website and on Facebook. So I would encourage that as a resource specifically instead of the slides.
And Brighton and Jordan, I think Carla wanted to know if she can get a copy of the PowerPoint.
Let me unmute them. Hold on just a sec. I think you're still muted there, Brighton.
Okay, it looks like Brighton is unmuted.
Oh, okay.
Yes, definitely. Yep, Jordan and I are unmuted now. Thank you. Yes, we can, get you the PowerPoints, and I'm not sure if it's easier for you to send it out, Rose, to everyone who is on the webinar, but we definitely can send it out. And also, as we stated before, it's on our website, Step to Respect, at Native American Youth and Family Center.org or NAYAPDX.org. I can try to type it. I can't actually type in my chat box, but here. Oh, you know what? Here, I'm gonna type the website right now about where you can find it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, if you send it to me, I can send it to the attendees.
Thank you.
And then we do have a question asking to explain the acronym LGBTQAA.
All right, that's Krista here. Can we mute everyone else so there's not an echo? Is that any better? Testing? All right, that sounds much better. So the LGBT acronym is kind of more used in mainstream circles to talk about lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, and there's kind of two types of trans: intersex, queer, questioning, as well as asexual youth, or not just youth, sorry, people. And I mean, it's hard to go into exactly what that can mean for folks. There's lots of really awesome resources online and on our website as well that specifically talk about kind of what those different identities can be or what they can mean for folks, what they might entail. But as soon as you learn an acronym, like, young people just are awesome and come up with their own identities and ways of understanding themselves. So I would, even if you think you've got the lingo down, the next day they'll kind of be a new way of expression or a new way of being that are so old they're new. They seem new. So I definitely encourage people to do that, do that homework and do that learning, and then also be open to change and be open to young people, kind of trying on different labels and identities, and before they decide, what might fit. Two-spirit is often used in Native communities specifically as kind of an umbrella term for folks who are kind of gender fabulous or don't conform to gender binaries, or have understandings of sexuality that are outside of kind of the heterosexual norm. So sometimes we'll just say that as an umbrella term, but again, that's not something that every Indigenous youth is comfortable with or has teachings around. So we try and really be open to. That's also the We're More Than a Rainbow concept is about, is that we have these really long acronym, and that still doesn't encompass all of what it means to be in relation with yourself or another human being. So that's my short answer.
Thank you. And we have a comment that says, "Wow, ladies, amazing work." And then we have a question from Dixie Dorman. He wants to know if there's a resource list of the different organizations available for referencing. Something like an annotated bibliography with information about different sites available for us as professionals to share with the people we serve. I mean, both of your websites have a resource list, correct?
Yes. Unmuted. Yeah, our website has
Yes.
a tab called Resources, and you can find a lot of them that are in the Northwest region, and some national numbers also. We also have a Healthy Relationships resource guide specifically for youth, but it is somewhat local to the Oregon area, but we're happy to email that out with our contact, and I'll give out my email address too.
Okay,
and
great.
This is Krista at the NIWRC Sexual Health Network. If you have any trouble navigating our website, we can definitely kind of give general thoughts about which resources would be helpful. If you do go specifically to the network, we do have resources, and then there's a drop-down menu, and in that there is a Two-Spirit resource directory that also has a youth-specific category in it, and that you can download. There's also some Indigenous-specific sexual and reproductive health information and other toolkits and curriculums that are on there. So there are a lot of resources, but if you're looking for a specific recommendation, we can also do that. But yeah, definitely check out both of the organizational websites first, and if you can't quite find what you're looking for, then get in touch.
Okay, great. And I just want to add too, for the National Indigenous Women's Resource Center, we do also have resources that we've provided on our website, www.niwrc.org. And on our website, you can find our actual recent event that we've involved youth with as far as Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. Is the Native Love Challenge, and again, you can find that at our website. But it's an exciting venture that through a grant with Verizon, NIWRC in partnership with the Indian Law Resource Center. It just is meant to raise awareness with photos, videos, posters, social media campaign among our youth for them to redefine what Native love means to them. And we provided a webinar on it. It was a week ago today, which also can be found on our website. So just encouraging our participants to also seek that out if they so choose to share with the youth, which I think is kind of similar to the art and poetry and just different activities that both NAYA and the Native Youth Sexual Assault Health Network provided. So just wanted to provide that real quickly. And then there's another question from Alice Cloud. Do you have any skits to show? So maybe on your website, does the Native Youth Sexual Health Network or NAYA have any skits or anything on YouTube? I guess I'm not sure.
Yes, I think we both have YouTube channels. So we do have a number of Sorry, the echo. So yeah, I think I heard Brighton say that yes, both NAYA, Step to Respect, and the Native Youth Sexual Health Network, which is NYSHN, have YouTube channels. I think on YouTube actually we're Native Youth Sex Health, which might be misleading, but our name is very long, so that's how much we could fit on YouTube. But yeah, definitely check out, there's lots of really awesome videos that have all been youth developed and youth made that is for the express purpose of peer support and, you know, sparking dialogue, and they're also really funny. So if you're on your lunch break and you want to look at some funny videos that aren't cats, you can do that as well.
And this is Brighton and Jordan again. We do have like the public service announcement that the students created last year for healthy breakups that can be found on the website. And then we also have a couple of POW tunes, which we use for education and training with youth and adults. And they're kind of like a fun slideshow, so they're not as boring as PowerPoints can sometimes be. They're kind of like cute animations to get, you know, a quick point across about healthy relationships. And that, I believe, is on a YouTube channel, but you can link to that through our webpage, which is the best place to find it.
Great, thank you. And then just a follow-up comment from Marilyn. She said she understood the LGBTQA and two-spirited, but the intersex, another term, she said was new to her. So she thanks you again for providing an explanation for that. And then I guess I'm not seeing any other questions. I see Miigwech from Dixie Dorman, so she's saying thank you so much. And let's see, is there anything else? I'm not seeing anything. So, so I just want to provide this opportunity for our presenters. If you have any final comments, I can still field questions if they come in, but just want to provide this opportunity for all three of you if you have any final comments. So we could start with Brighton.
Yes, thanks so much, Rose. Thank you, Krista, and thank you, Tang, and everyone else on the webinar. It's been really great just to share out today. This is the last year of S.T.E.P to Respect being a funded program, and so we really are interested in sharing this work with others, especially Native-specific programming organizations and schools. We really want this work to live on and not to just be here at NAYA, but really for it to develop and evolve. So please do contact us if you're interested in implementing a program that's like S.T.E.P to Respect. And once again, S.T.E.P to Respect stood for Services, Training, Education, and Policies in order to reduce teen dating violence, stalking, sexual assault, and domestic violence for youth.
Yep, what Brighton said. Thanks, you guys, for listening.
Thanks, everyone. This is Krista, and I'm just, yeah, really excited to see what comes next out of NAYA, because you guys have such a reputation now. So excited to see phase 2 of what comes out of the amazing youth there. And then for us, I guess just final messages of like really thinking about how it is that you're going to support Indigenous youth to empower themselves, because it's not something you can define or do for someone else. It really is a self-process, and so what can you do to support Indigenous youth leadership? Because we're the experts. We know what we need, and really trust the young people. You know what it is that they want and need, and be the awesome adult support that you didn't maybe have when you were growing up. So thanks, everyone.
Oh, thank you so much. I just want to express, you know, our deepest gratitude for the work, and I don't want to call it just work, but it's you know, it's spiritual work, it's sacred, it's the lives of our children, and for to have you as advocates and those that are who are participating today and who will listen later on, just to encourage you to keep promoting you know, wellness and healing for our youth, because they're our most precious ones. You know, as I sit here and look at my kids and my grandkids and all the children, all our Native youth who are, you know, out there this day and who are questioning and who may be experiencing issues, and to be that trusted adult, to be that, like Krista just said, to provide that support is so critical for the future of our children. And so I just want to again thank you, and look forward to for our coordinated efforts and to wish NAYA the best on their upcoming event, the Healthy Summit Breakup, or what do you call it, the Healthy Breakup Summit, which I also agree with Krista, that's really an amazing opportunity and a gap for our youth. So to provide that is just wonderful. So I'm really interested in that, and I really look forward to hearing about it, and then just working with you all in the future. So thank you so much, and thank you to Tang, and thank all our participants for everything that you do.